Chapter 147 Opening 3. After much consideration, she arranged for some skewers and 3 light dishes, such as asparagus, tofu, and dried eggplant with garlic. They arranged 3 more side dishes, a plate of Sichuan pickled vegetables, sweet and sour garlic, and a plate of mixed radishes. The skin of the radish was crunchy, and the red color made it appetizing. At the other end, Jiyu Chungrue was carrying tea and snacks to the patriarch and the rest of the people sitting in the hall. Elders, shall we escort you to the private room upstairs? No, there are limited private rooms. I think there will be more people coming in, so it's better to leave it to the rich. Just give us more delicious food, and it's fine. The patriarch shook his head. Have these as your starter. The food will be ready in about 15 minutes. Chungrue, is that Lord Ju, the second son of the general, Ju Huaiming? Second Uncle Jiyu asked in a low voice. Yes, but he's on an errand right now, so we'd better pretend we don't know. How did you two meet? I've treated his illness once. You guys eat up, I still have to prep more stuff in the kitchen. Jiyu Chungrue turned around and walked to the back kitchen. Don't tell me this restaurant is his. Second Uncle Jiyu looked at Father Jiyu with uncertainty. Father Jiyu rolled his eyes at him. Jiyu Chungrue didn't reveal anything, so how would he know? However, even if it didn't belong to Ju Ying, it might have been Jiyu Chengruis. Otherwise, Ju Huaiming wouldn't have brought other officials to support them. Oh, right, the third prince is guarding the navy at Dongyang town. Could it be that they've gotten in touch with the third prince? The patriarch looked at them, exchanging looks, and hit the table in a bad mood. He warned vaguely, do what you're supposed to do. You've just sunk your ship, so it's better not to stick your heads out. Otherwise, you'll be beaten down. He hadn't thought much about it before and assumed the Qiao family bullying the Jiyu family was because of an old grudge. However, this time, the Qiao family's incident implicated the former county governor and his wife's family. Thinking about it this way, this matter was much more complicated than they thought. It was better to have their heads down for a few years. Father Jiyu nodded. He also knew something was wrong, but since General Ju's son was here, there shouldn't be a problem as long as they didn't overstep their boundaries. In a small noodle shop diagonally across, the previous manager of Dongxing Restaurant, Wang Quan, respectfully said to the young man in his 20s, "Young master, did you see them? It's the man standing with Ju Huaiming and the woman giving out sweets who saved Ju Huaiming. I can see that. They're young, but they sure are capable." Qiao Lansheng snorted coldly. The young man was elder Qiao's son, previously studying abroad. "What about the thing I asked you to do? Can my mother and Lan be exchanged?" he asked. Constable Li said that we can only exchange for one of them. Otherwise, without restraint, it would be troublesome if rumors spread when they arrive. "I can only change one?" "Yes, we can only change one. Besides, he's being watched closely by that Jew guy. We can't do many things, so we have to exchange as soon as possible." Qiao Lansheng hesitated for a moment before saying, "Then let him do it according to the situation. He'll get whoever he can." "Understood." At this point, Wang Quan paused and continued, "By the way, young master, there are 2 workers who were previously working in our restaurant working there now. Should we get in touch with them? Are you stupid? If even you know they used to be employees of the Dongxing restaurant, how could they not know? Since they knew and still hired them, they would definitely be watched. We can't make any moves now, at least not before Ju Huaiming leaves, or else all of us are dead." Chapter 148 Opening 4. Soon, Ju Huaiming and the others were about to pay the bill. Ju Ying walked out and said, "Big brother Ju, you're treating me like an outsider now. Why are you paying at your restaurant? Today is different as I'm treating them. Otherwise, they'll think that I'm not sincere." Ju Huaiming laughed and looked at Sun Hongliang. "Bill please. Also, give me one of those membership cards." "Sure, please wait a moment." Sun Hongliang glanced at Ju Ying, and seeing that she didn't stop him, he lowered his head and got to work. Ju Ying looked at them and said, "Sirs, how do you like the food? If you have any suggestions, please let us know. We can improve it." "Yes, yes. Don't be polite. Just say what you have to say." Zhu Huaiming turned his head and added. Soon after, he was the first to speak up. I like the food. It's just that I'll have to go back and change my clothes after this meal. Yes, it'll be good if it can be ventilated. County Mayor Kong shook his head and added, but the weather is too cold, so that will be difficult. We have to think of a way to solve this. I'll think about it later. Zhu Ying nodded in agreement. To be honest, she had forgotten about this. However, even if she did not forget, there was no ventilation system in this period. It seemed that she had to find a carpenter to modify an exhaust fan. Does anyone else have more suggestions? She asked. The dishes in your restaurant are indeed delicious, but the overall taste is slightly bland. The people in our area have a preference for a strong taste, after all. Manager Liu said. That's true, but the numbing and spice are just to my taste. I'll come and try the other pots when I'm free. Tian Jingzhong said with a smile. You're welcome at any time. Zhu Ying nodded. As for the others, they were all fine and didn't raise any opinions. They might have had nothing to say. After Zhu Huaiming got the VIP-looking membership card, the others also asked for one. Zhu Ying then sent them out after everything was done. Then, she sent the patriarch and the others out but didn't accept their money. The response he got was that the food was good, but the restaurant's interior was a little too stuffy. After a busy morning and 4 whole turnovers in the afternoon, everyone was exhausted. In particular, a few workers had run so much that their legs were jellified. Jiyu Chengrui's hands trembled as he cut the meat, and Zhu Ying's heart ached when she saw this. She stepped forward and held his hand. You've worked hard, Rui. Let's not use a knife in the afternoon and switch to using a shredder. No, it'll be troublesome if we're discovered. Jiyu Chengrui shook his head. I'm talking about the guillotine-like knife-cutting tool. We can try that. After lunch, they cleaned the kitchen and returned to their rooms to rest. Zhu Ying took out a guillotine meat cutter from her interspace. Then the husband and wife sliced the meat in the kitchen. Because of the cold weather, they were not afraid of the sliced meat sticking together. So, the two of them worked together for the entire afternoon. After finishing that, Zhu Ying stir-fried more base ingredients and mixed more dipping sauce. She didn't care about anything else. Most of the people who came in the evening were students at the academy. Some came to taste it after hearing the news, but there weren't many of them, so the overall number of customers was much lower. After sending off the last guest, Zhu Ying waited for Sun Hongliang to calculate the bill before asking, Brother Sun, how much is today's revenue? 778 taels. The total gross profit is 352 taels. Of course, the remaining 5 sets of lamb chops are not counted. If we count them in, we should be able to add another 2 taels. Sun Hongliang said. Chapter 149. Specially waiting for them. It looks like our hard work wasn't in vain. I see that there's still some lamb spine left, so let's have a hearty meal and finish all the remaining dishes. How about it? Zhu Ying glanced at the tired crowd and suggested. Li Yu, in particular, was nodding off. She was about to fall asleep. However, they immediately perked up when everyone heard Zhu Ying's offer. Then, everyone started to set the food up, and soon, the hot pot was served. After the meal, Zhu Ying spoke up, saying, Everyone looks tired, so remember to boil some water to soak your feet. You all can wake up a bit later tomorrow. I'll have to trouble you to get the meat earlier tomorrow. She looked at Fang Qing and added. Don't worry, madam. I won't delay anything. All right, we'll be going back now. Zhu Ying ended the discussion as she stood up. It's already so late. May I humbly suggest that you two stay here for the night? Li Sheng suggested. No, I still have things to do at home. Remember to lock the doors and windows at night before going to bed. After Zhu Ying finished reminding them, she walked home with Jiyu Chengrui. What they didn't expect was for Tian Jiawang to follow them. Jiyu Chengrui turned his head and said, Brother Tian, you don't have to come with us, and well just let your sister know that you won't be coming back for the night. It's fine. I'm worried about the 3 of them at home. It's all right since I have you two to accompany me. Let's go. Tian Jiawang explained as he headed forward. The couple could only follow behind him. In the village, Ju Ying could hear Zhuang's aggrieved whining from afar. She turned her head and asked, Rui, why don't we bring Zhuang along when we go out tomorrow? We shouldn't starve him anymore. You can take him out if you want to. It'll be safer to have him with us on the way back, but don't leave anything valuable in the house. I know. Brother Tian, Jiyu Chungrui said when they arrived at his house. We will set off tomorrow at 11 a.m. tomorrow. All right. Just call me when you're leaving. Tian Jiawang walked home after saying goodbye. After the couple returned home, Jiyu Chungrui went to heat the brick bed while Ju Ying entered her interspace and quickly made half a pot of black noodle soup for Zhuang, adding 2 sticks of sausage to it. Zhuang only stopped whining after he had a hot meal. After that, the husband and wife went to the interspace to take a hot bath before going to sleep. The next day, the couple cleaned up the house and rushed to town with Tian Jiawang and Zhuang. It was another busy day, but because there was no discount, the number of people was smaller. But their daily income was still more than 200 taels of silver, which relieved Ju Ying. Otherwise, she was afraid she could not afford to hire this many people. They used up an average of 4 sheep and about half a cow, so 200 taels should be enough to cover their daily expenses. As things got more stable, Ju Ying's daily tasks were reduced. She no longer needed to do anything besides cook the base ingredients and dipping sauce. Mrs. Li took over the task of slicing meat. Ju Ying found an environmentally friendly black paint to modify the meat slicing machine to pass off as something normal to avoid attracting attention. In the blink of an eye, half a month had passed. The restaurant's business was on the right track, and Jiyu Chengrui's clinic was getting busier. One evening, as Ju Ying brought Zhuang home, they saw Father Jiyu wandering around their house as soon as they entered the village. When he saw her, he stood still. This was how Ju Ying knew he was waiting for her or Jiyu Chungrui. Father, are you all right? She walked over after a moment of hesitation. Father Jiyu nodded and smiled dryly. Why did you come back alone? Where's Chungrui? He still has patients, and he might have to stay at the clinic tonight. Chapter 150 Regret. It's not safe for you to go back and forth on your own. If it's late, don't come back. Father Jiyu said. I understand, Father. Then, I'll leave you to your work. After Ju Ying finished speaking, she went home with Zhuang. Father Jiyu wanted to say something but stopped himself. In the end, he didn't call out to her. After Ju Ying had gone far away, she wondered why Father Jiyu was looking for them this time. Could it be to borrow money? After that, she shook her head and tossed him to the back of her mind. When she got home, she went to the shed and let Zhuang go. Ju Ying then went to her interspace to make some shredded chicken porridge. After giving Zhuang half a bowl, she ate hers with a fried tomato egg. After that, she started to work in the space. On the other end, after Father Jiyu returned home, Mrs. Liu hurriedly asked, Darling, how is it? Did they agree? Father Jiyu shook his head. Only Ju Ying came back, so I was embarrassed to ask. Darling, Ju Ying is the one who can cook, not Chungrui. Mrs. Liu spoke with a speechless expression. You have the nerve to ask for something from your daughter-in-law? I'm not that thick-skinned. Father Jiyu glared at her. Then why don't we go to the clinic to find Chungrui tomorrow? Otherwise, our small shop won't be able to support itself any further. Mrs. Liu said with a smile. Then let's talk about it tomorrow, and let's have dinner. Father Jiyu sat down at the main table after that. When Mrs. Liu saw this, she told Mrs. Sun and Mrs. Guo to set the table. The next day, Father Jiyu went to the clinic early in the morning but was told Chungrui was at the restaurant, so he had no choice but to go over. When he came over, the couple was having breakfast. Jiyu Chungrui was stunned for a moment before asking, Father, have you eaten yet? If not, you can make do with it here. I've already eaten. You guys hurry up and eat, and I'll wait for you in the front. Father Jiyu said, and he went to the main hall. At the same time, Father Jiyu complained inwardly. This early in the morning, and Hez eating millet porridge, baked biscuits, meat, and even some side dishes. If this is just making do, what did I eat for breakfast? Pig food. It seemed that the young couple had gotten back on their feet. Perhaps they could resume their lives in the capital one day. Thinking of this, There was a burst of regret. Ju Ying wasn't a jinx but a money-making girl. He couldn't help but start disliking Mrs. Liu and Mrs. Yarrow for their actions. He would not have acted so coldly against the couple back then if they hadn't been fanning the flames. After he left, Ju Ying told him about Father Jiyu waiting for them yesterday. There must be something he wants to talk to you about. Be careful, and don't fall into his trap. Don't worry, he's not my biological father. I won't be affected by false kinship. Jiyu Chongrue nodded. After that, the two of them finished their breakfast quickly. After the meal, Jiyu Chongrue went to the front, while Ju Ying took the bowls and chopsticks to the kitchen and started her work. Jiyu Chongrue went over with a pot of tea and a plate of peanuts left over from yesterday. After sitting down, he poured his father a cup of tea and said, "Father, have a cup of tea to warm your body." "Eh?" Father Jiyu responded, then pointed to the exhaust fan on the window and asked, "What's that? Why is there a hole in the window? Wouldn't it make here?" "That's an exhaust fan. Previously, everyone felt that the smell of smoke was too strong, so we got a carpenter to make that." "Is it useful?" "It works, but it can only move when someone is pulling it." "Doesn't that mean you have to recruit more people?" "Yes, I hired a few beggars, and they will come over to help out during mealtimes. It didn't cost much." As soon as he said that, Father Jiyu thought of the opening day when a group of beggars was giving out flyers on the street. He couldn't help but say, "You're sure good at hiring. Beggars are much cheaper than normal people." Chapter 151. A good idea, I guess you can call it that way, but it's not that complicated to hand out flyers. These beggars can get a meal with their work too. "You're right." Father Jiyu coughed twice and added, "I came here today to ask for your help." "Do say, and we will definitely help if we can." Jiyu Chongrue nodded. Because he wasn't surprised, Father Jiyu knew that Ju Ying had most likely told Jiyu Chongrue about him looking for them. He openly declared his request. "Do you know that your Aunt Liu and second aunt are running a pastry shop? I've seen them selling royal desserts and pastries." "Yes, but it's too expensive and hard to sell in this small town, so Father Jiyu was a little embarrassed when he said this. But in the end, he continued, "So, I am here to ask Ju Ying if she has any ordinary dessert recipes. Otherwise, I'm scared that the small shop won't be able to survive. I can only discuss this with Ju Ying, as I don't know the details. Please hurry up. I'll head back for now." Father Jiyu stood up and said, "All right, I'll give you a reply tonight." "Sure, you continue your work." Father Jiyu turned around and walked out after he finished speaking. After sending him off, Jiyu Chongrue returned to the kitchen and told Ju Ying about the matter. Ju Ying laughed. He still has the nerve to ask for this. So shameless. He's thick-skinned, but what do we do now? Are we giving it to him or not? It's simple to make mung bean cakes and the like, so I don't believe they don't know those. They're most likely interested in the desserts Chun Niang makes. But that's our signature dessert, and we can't give it to them. Alright, let's give them the mung bean cake, red bean cake, yellow pea cake, and chestnut cake recipes. Alright, I'll reply to them this evening. Jiyu Chongrue went to his clinic after saying his goodbyes. After he left, Ju Ying felt that the desserts they were offering were too little, so she taught Chun Niang the recipe for a series of rice cakes and steamed cakes, asking her to try making them when she was free. At the same time, she was also indirectly letting the Jiyu family know she wasn't someone they could bully. After she was done, she began to stir-fry 2 pots of hot pot ingredients. After she saw that the base ingredients were enough in the afternoon, she mixed the dipping sauce for the hot pot and went to the manor after telling Jiyu Chongrue in his clinic. Because the restaurant needed tofu and vermicelli, it wasn't a good idea to always make them in her interspace. She planned to build a workshop in the manor so that the people in the manor could have some income and she could relax a little. When she arrived at the manor, she immediately found Chang Shun and told him about the matter. She asked, "Uncle Chang, what do you think?" "It's a good idea. There's no work in the village now, and the strong laborers are going to the labor market daily for work. But now that it's getting cold, there's not much work on the dock. If we can build a workshop, it'll solve a big problem. The best thing about this is that we can work all year round." "Alright, This matter is settled then. However, beans are scarce in our area because of the bean sprout hype this year. We'll use what we have in our own restaurant this year. We'll expand the production when the river opens tomorrow and import beans from other places. What about the beans for this year? Do we buy them from the grain shop? We do have to buy some, but I've saved some before. When the workshop is done, we'll use those beans first. Alright, where should we set up the workshop? Let's set it up in the second courtyard first. We'll build a workshop next year when we're renovating the house, so you have to maintain the house well for now. Sure, don't worry. That's all. I'll leave the recruitment to you, so remember to find someone who has difficulties at home but is clean and tidy. Chapter 152. Do you want it or not? After Ju Ying got up and gave him a tael of silver, she told him about the tools he needed to buy, especially the grinding stone. The ones they had were shipped to the restaurant. As for the other tools they needed to make tofu, she could use the ones at home. After that, she went home. Seeing that it was still early, she wanted to go into her interspace to make a seafood feast. However, just as she was about to lock up, she saw Sister Tian walking over. She had no choice but to let her into the house. I haven't been here for a day, and it's rather cold in the house. Sister, please sit down first, and I'll start a fire. There's no need as it's just a few words. I'll leave after I'm done. Sure, what is it? Well, Da Hua has been quieter than before and doesn't like to go out to play. So, I was wondering if you could let her help out in the restaurant. She doesn't need a paycheck, just 2 meals will do, and I just want her to be in contact with more people. After Ju Ying heard this, she thought of the well-behaved and sensible Da Hua and then of Chun Niang, who was always physically exhausted. Finally, she nodded and said, "That's no problem, so just let her follow Brother Tian to work every day." "Thank you so much, sister. I've caused you trouble." No. Also, I will give her a salary and arrange for her to work under a pastry chef. As for whether she can learn anything, it will depend on her. After hearing this, Sister Tian's eyes suddenly lit up. It was always a good thing to learn some craft. Once she learned it, it would be her own. In the future, she would be confident when she married into her in-laws' house. Thinking of this, she nodded. "I thank you on behalf of Da Hua. You and your husband are really saviors of our family. You're exaggerating, you've helped us a lot too. Just tell Da Hua to learn well when she gets there." "Oh, of course. I'll let you get back to your job and tell Da Hua the good news." Elder Sister Tian thanked Ju Ying and hurriedly walked back. After she left, Ju Ying locked the door and then started a fire. After adding some firewood, she entered her interspace to make a feast. When she was done, she opened the door and waited for Jiyu Chungrui to return. On the other end, Jiyu Chungrui was at the Jiyu residence. After telling Mrs. Liu and Mrs. Yarrow the recipes, he was about to leave when suddenly, Mrs. Liu called out to him, "Chungrui, aren't you trying to fool us? These few recipes aren't difficult. Take it or leave it. This is my wife's own recipe, and the rest is the craftsmanship taught to her by her master. Those are our restaurant's signature desserts, and I can't give those to you." Jiyu Chungrui stated firmly, and he returned home with a Zhuang, who was playing with Jiyu Chengshi. "Darling, look at him." Mrs. Liu turned her head and wanted to complain about Jiyu Chungrui. However, Father Jiyu chided her. "I think you don't know what's good for you. If you think the recipe is plain, you can create one yourself." Indeed. Although these recipes are ordinary, they are suitable for selling in small shops. The lotus crisp you made is delicious, but how many customers bought it? Also, I've told you about the date cake, which is delicious and cheap. You're just lazy, reaching beyond your grasp and always thinking about making big money without doing any actual work. If you really can't do it, Mrs. Guo and Mrs. Sun will go to town, and you can stay here to do the housework. Madame Chiao said this, shaking her head in disappointment. "Mother, we'll listen to you and try it tomorrow. We so happen to have some green beans at home." Mrs. Yarrow heard the anger in Madame Chiao's words and hurriedly assured her. But Madame Chiao didn't pay any more attention but looked at Mrs. Liu. "It's time for you to take care of Cheng Ye's marriage. So, stop looking for some wealthy young lady. Just find a good-looking and capable farmer's girl with a tight-knit family. Chapter 153 Angry but Changye is, Mrs. Liu sternly retorted. The eldest son, Jiyu Chengji's wife, was the legitimate daughter of a fourth-rank official. Mrs. Liu knew she shouldn't expect a girl of that standard with their family's current situation, but at least a girl better than Ju Ying. No matter what, she should at least be the daughter of a landlord. She would rather die than find an illiterate farmer's daughter to be her daughter-in-law. But before she could finish, Madame Chow knocked the ground with her walking stick and scolded, "Look at the situation clearly, will you? We are deemed guilty by the officials. Any of our family members can't take the imperial examination for 3 generations, and can't be officials in court. Even if there is a wealthy young lady who is willing to marry Changye, aren't you afraid that he would suffer in his in-laws' family in the future? Did you think that you would hold the pants in this marriage? You sure you aren't afraid she'll order you around like a maid? The daughter of a good family might not even be willing to marry into the family and suffer the anger of a bastard like you. Mother, calm down. She's just bad-tempered." Father Jiyu saw his mother really get angry and quickly went forward to comfort her. He didn't expect Madame Chow to push him away. "You're not any better, and don't keep thinking about restoring your former glory all day long. It's not so easy to achieve those without some luck. It's better to humbly settle our family's affairs and live a steady life. Down to earth, don't you even understand what that means? Look at Chung Rue and his wife. It wasn't easy to go up the mountain to pick herbs and make tofu, but they still managed to get by. Look at you guys now." Madame Chow was so angry that she gasped for breath, shook her head, and wiped her tears. "It's all my fault. If I had known that this day would come, I would have made you suffer more when you were young so that you wouldn't be so arrogant and have difficulty even making a living now." After that, she trembled, returned to her room, and didn't even finish eating her meal. Everyone else in the room stared at each other, not knowing what to say. "All right, let's eat. Mrs. Liu will bring food to Mother in a moment to apologize." After being stunned for a while, Father Jiyu finally returned to his senses and replied. Mrs. Liu was unwilling when she heard this, so she said to Jiyu Changye, "Son, you go." Jiyu Changye hesitated for a moment but still agreed. He followed Mrs. Guo to get the food. "Big brother, do you think Mother is envious of Chung Rue and his wife?" Second uncle asked in a low voice. "Of course," Father Jiyu said thoughtfully. "Seeing Chengrue's family life getting better while our days are getting worse, she must be angry." "You don't say. Chung Rue and his wife are indeed capable. Of course, they work every day from early morning until late at night. Which one of us can take it? In the past, we always said that Mrs. Liu and the others couldn't see reality clearly, but we are the same. Our family really can't stand any more turmoil, not to mention that we still have to give the clan 30 taels of silver for the boat at the end of the year. So, we're not buying a boat. That's not realistic. We'll rent a boat when the river opens. But for now, let's think about what to transport or what business we can do. Otherwise, it's useless to have a boat. Tomorrow, you can go to the shop and keep an eye on them to see how they do business. Otherwise, if we continue to lose money like this, we won't even be able to have a meal next year." "Okay, I'll go to the shop and keep an eye on it tomorrow." Second Uncle Jiyu nodded. On the other side, Xiao Lanlan and the others who were exiled had reached the place of the snow disaster and met with many refugees who had fled. Chapter 154 Mother Qiao's death. Not to mention Xiao Lanlan and the others in exile, even the officers escorting them were unwilling to take another step forward. However, they couldn't explain themselves if they didn't send her to their destinations, so they could only vent their anger on Xiao Lanlan and the others. Especially Mother Qiao, whose health wasn't good, to begin with, and she hadn't done any vigorous exercise for many years. She had already reached her limit long ago in this journey. After she staggered and fell to the ground, an officer came forward and gave her 2 lashes with his whip. "Hurry up. If you dawdle any longer, I won't be able to complete my mission before the new year." Officer, please stop. My mother really can't walk anymore. Why don't we take a break?" Xiao Lanlan kneeled and begged. When the others heard this, they immediately agreed. It was difficult to walk in the snow, they were all exhausted and couldn't move. Rest my ass. I want to rest, but look at this cold weather. Is there any place to rest? Or do you want to freeze to death in the snow? If that's the case, I'll fulfill your wish so we can go back and report our mission. When the officer said this, he kicked Mother Chow. Hurry up. Well, treat it as if you're dead if you don't leave. No. Let's go, I'm okay. Mother Chow hurriedly got up. Seeing this, Chow Lanlan could only support her mother and continue forward, while the others didn't say anything else. What a bunch of ingrates, said the officer. Never honest if they don't get whipped once or twice. Chow Lanlan gritted her teeth. He better not let her get an opportunity, or she would definitely kill him. She just didn't know if her big brother had managed to escape the arrest of the soldiers. If he did, why wasn't he here to save them? Mother Chow fell to the ground and dragged her along just as she was thinking. Her entire body hurt from the fall, and she was whipped before she could make a sound. The tail of the whip hit her head, and her view darkened. She heard another gust of wind. Just as she was about to dodge, a body pressed down on her, and a storm of kicks came. Then, her mother spat a mouthful of blood on her face, which made her scream. Perhaps because her screams were too heartbreaking, the officers finally stopped. Cough. Mother Chow coughed violently, then her head tilted to the side as she vomited large mouthfuls of blood, shocking everyone. When Chow Lanlan realized something was wrong, she quickly pushed Mother Chow off her and pulled her into her arms. Mother, don't scare me. Lanlan, live well and wait for your brother. In the future, remember. Mother Chow spoke intermittently, and she didn't finish her sentence. She choked on the cold wind, coughed violently, and spat out more mouthfuls of blood. After that, she raised her hand and touched Chow Lanlan's face reluctantly. However, before Mother Chow's hand could touch her face, it drooped down, and then her head tilted to the side. She stopped breathing. Chow Lanlan immediately froze. The officer went forward to check Mother Chow's nose because the situation wasn't good. After realizing she was no longer breathing, he had to call his companions and pull her up. What are you doing? Let go of my mother, you murderers. Let go of my mother. Chow Lanlan roared in anger. However, the officers ignored her and even whipped her twice. They hastily dug a snow pit and buried her in it. Chow Yuan, who was not far away, had looked at Chow Lanlan with hatred, indifference, and even ridicule. She wouldn't have brought them such disaster if it weren't for her shamelessness. Chapter 155 Escape. Now that she had caused her mother's death, he felt some sympathy for her. However, it wasn't that he sympathized with her, but rather if she would regret her previous betrayal. Would she regret doing it because of Jiyu Chengru's charm despite knowing they couldn't be together and eventually harming others? Did she regret it? Of course, Chow Lanlan regretted it long ago, but she didn't know Jiyu Chengru had saved Ju Huaiming, so she never felt that she had done anything wrong. However, after seeing what happened to her mother and having her mother die in her arms, she finally knew what she did wrong. Just like her father had said, they were enemies. Even if Jiyu Chengru knew Ju Huaiming would harm the Chow family after he recovered, he wouldn't have said anything. At this thought, a glint of hatred flashed in her eyes. The officer didn't know what she was thinking, so when he saw her eyes full of hatred, he thought she was targeting him. He went up and gave her a whip. Let's go quickly. We can only be safe if we get out of the snow zone as soon as possible. After that, he muttered a few words to the others, and they became wary of Chow Lanlan. If she did anything aggressive, she would be beaten up immediately. 3 days passed just like that. On the night of the 3rd day, an officer quietly called Chow Lanlan out. At first, Chow Lanlan didn't want to go. She was afraid they would do something to her, but these few days, she had been beaten constantly, so, in the end, she obediently followed. After walking to some ruins not far away, the officer said, "Go. Someone wants to see you." Chow Lanlan was stunned for a moment. She thought of her brother and immediately walked out. Under the light of the snow, she could vaguely see that it was a man who wasn't very tall. There was a person at his feet, or rather, a corpse. She realized something and quickly said, "Mister, are you here to pick me up?" "Yes, I heard that your mother is gone. The man said in a deep voice. Yes, it was 3 days ago. Xiao Lanlan said indignantly, why did you only come now? My mother would still be alive. We can only save one. So, isn't that great? Or do you prefer that I make a choice? The man said in a bad mood. Scream a few times, the more painful sounding, the better, said the man. After saying that, he started to howl like a wolf. At first, Xiao Lanlan's face turned pale, but she quickly understood what he meant and started to scream. When the officer from before came over, he asked Xiao Lanlan to change her clothes quickly. She tore the clothes apart and threw them near the corpse. Then, Xiao Lanlan realized that the corpse had been bitten to the point that it no longer looked human. There was a wolf's corpse on the side, and she was so scared that she couldn't help but tremble. Let's go, or do you really want to be eaten by wolves? The man stepped forward to grab her, then immediately turned around and left. The officer also pretended to shout to attract others' attention to her miserable state. Then he left in a hurry. Soon, another wolf arrived and tore the corpse into pieces, which were already beyond recognition. In the county office, Zhu Huaiming handed over the information about the 1,000 troops stationed here to County Mayor Kong and said a few words. I'll leave the rest to you, Mr. Kong. I'll be returning to the camp tomorrow. Are you in a hurry? If not, why not leave a day later? Tomorrow, let's go for another meal of hot pot. County Mayor Kong suggested. Zhu Huaiming hesitated for a moment. Sure, let's go then. I'll bring some back if it's convenient for my cousin. I'll treat you this time. No need, I'll pay. You just have to remember to take care of the couple in the future, as long as they don't break the law. Chapter 156 Farewell. 1. No problem. County Mayor Kong paused and asked some more. By the way, are you really going to keep Constable Li and Xiao Lanping alive? I heard they're planning to bring Xiao Lanlan and her mother back. Yes, because I discovered that an underground force is helping them. They can be used to lure those people out. Well, wait for all the underground forces here to gather before we capture them all in one fell swoop. Otherwise, once they've settled down and grown, they'll cause us more trouble. I understand. Okay, I'll leave you to your work. I have to go back and pack up as I'll leave town tomorrow. Zhu Huaiming turned around and walked out. After he left, County Mayor Kong read the garrison's situation and shook his head. No wonder the previous governor acted like a king. How much did he spend bribing these people? On the other end, Jiyu Chungrui returned and saw the seafood feast on the table when he entered the interspace. He was drooling, especially after noticing the steamed abalone with garlic vermicelli and lobster. Look at you, Zhu Ying scolded with a smile. Hurry up and wash your hands. I've been here for 2 months and haven't had any seafood other than crab. I'm craving this so badly. When Jiyu Chungrui said this, he saw a bottle of normal liquor on the table and paused. Babe, let's have the bottle of white wine, and that would be perfect to go with the seafood. No problem. Let's have a feast then. Zhu Ying said as she put the alcohol aside and went to the warehouse to open a bottle of high-end white wine. After they had their fill, Jiyu Chungrui told Zhu Ying about his visit to the Jiyu family. We don't have to give them anything more next time. Mrs. Liu is just insatiable, and the shamelessness of her attitude is unbearable. True. Since they don't like it, don't even think about asking for more in the future. Zhu Ying nodded in agreement. After that, the couple got up and went to do their things. The next day, as soon as Zhu Ying arrived at the restaurant, she saw Sun Hongliang entertaining Zhu Huaiming and County Mayor Kong. She paused for a moment before walking over and asking, Brother Zhu, Mr. Kong, why are you here this early? I'm returning to the military camp today, so I came to say goodbye and have a hot pot while I'm at it. By the way, can I take this pot with me? Zhu Huaiming asked. I also want to take away 2 sets of ingredients. Of course. I'll prepare the base ingredients for you, and you can buy the meat yourself. Zhu Ying replied. I'll have to trouble manager Zhu to prepare 2 sets for me too. County Mayor Kong requested. No problem. I'll go and prepare now while you guys chat. Zhu Ying later asked a worker to go to the clinic and call Jiyu Chungrui back. Meanwhile, She went to the kitchen and started to pack the base and dipping sauce for them in a can. After she was done, she wrote down the instructions and dosage. The rest was made into a hot pot and served to them. Ju Huaiming saw her coming over and pointed to the seat next to Jiyu Chungrui. Since the restaurant isn't busy right now, let your workers prepare the rest, and we should have a meal together. Sure, why not? This meal is our farewell party for Brother Ju. I wish you a safe journey, Ju Ying said as she sat beside Jiyu Chungrui. You make it sound like him trying to escape from this meal. Ju Huaiming was stunned for a moment. No, isn't this what we should do? If you come back, remember to come and find us. Jiyu Chungrui quickly said. He placed half a plate of mutton into the pot and continued, this lamb meat is tender and will be cooked as soon as it curls up. Help yourself. Chapter 157 Farewell, 2. Of course, I know about that. Ju Huaiming said as he picked up a piece of meat. To be honest, Ju Ying's cooking skills are so good that I'm sure I'll be craving it in less than a month. It's good that you like it. It's cold, so why not I make some food now and then and have Manager Liu bring it over? Ju Huaiming nodded. No problem. But you have to make more, sister. Otherwise, there won't be enough for everyone. Of course. When they were almost done eating, she left and returned to the kitchen to wrap up the hot pot ingredients for them. Thinking of Ju Huaiming's previous words, she picked up a food basket for him. There were all sorts of snacks, like veggie rolls and crunchy peanuts. She also packed more than 10 meat biscuits in oil paper so that he could eat them after heating them on the way. After preparing, she placed the items on the counter and said to Sun Hongliang, Mr. Ju and the others don't need to pay for this meal today, and it's on me. Understood. Are these the same? Sun Hongliang pointed at the things she had packed. This is a personal gift, you don't have to write it down in the account books. Ju Ying spoke as Jiyu Chungrui brought them down. Ju Ying handed the things to them and reminded them, be careful, I put them in a clay pot. Thank you, sister. How much is it? Ju Huaiming took it and asked. No need. I already said that today's meal is on us. Ju Ying shook her head. Brother Ju, let's go while the weather is still clear. Jiyu Chungrui walked out with them after that. Seeing this, Ju Huaiming and County Mayor Kong didn't mention paying again. After a few polite goodbyes, they went their separate ways. However, Ju Huaiming didn't leave immediately. Instead, he went to talk to Manager Liu before he took his carriage to the military camp. On the other end, Jiyu Chungrui followed Ju Ying back to the kitchen after their guests had left. He turned his head and said to her, Brother Ju just told me that Elder Qiao's son, Qiao Lansheng hasn't been captured. Qiao Lanlan might have also been rescued, so we should be careful. Why didn't they arrest her? Ju Ying was shocked. She thought the danger was over, but it seemed it was still around. She thought of something and asked, could he be fishing for a bigger fish? Most likely. This town is a transit station for the waterway, so it's an important strategic place. It wouldn't be peaceful soon. Jiyu Chungrui added. Keep an eye on the 2 workers from the old Dongshan restaurant in case they're used by someone else. I'm going to the clinic. Sure, come home early tonight if there's nothing much there. After finishing her work in the afternoon, she went to the manor and taught them how to make tofu, its byproducts, and starch noodles. She only left after she guided them to make the finished products. Suddenly, Chang Shun chased after her. Mistress, I saw that the starch noodles are made from green bean starch. Taro might also be a possible replacement, so can we change it? It's a good idea, but green bean noodles are the most suitable and delicious when cooked. When Ju Ying said this, she thought of the taro noodles, and it should be fine if the taro noodles were used for shabu shabu. Try it and see if you can make it. You must at least guarantee that it doesn't break down after being boiled in water constantly. I understand. Let me try it, as we have quite a lot of taro in our village. If you succeed, remember to tell me. Ju Ying reminded him, took her zhuang, and went home. In the evening, after dinner was ready, Ju Ying waited until the food was cold, but Jiyu Chungrui still didn't return home. Thinking of him as a doctor, she did not wait any longer. Instead, she left half for him and started eating. After that, she went to her interspace to wash her dirty clothes, especially the blankets she had changed out of, and dried them in the washing machine before hanging them in the villa. Chapter 158 New Year's Gift 1. She didn't expect that he still had yet to return when she finished her work. She was a little anxious, but she felt more at ease when she thought of his abilities. She would have to get an accurate answer from him in the future regarding when he would return. Otherwise, it wasn't pleasant for her to keep waiting like this. She waited for another hour, but he still didn't return. She locked the door and left with Zhuang. They had not walked far from the village when Zhuang broke free from her grasp and pounced on someone. Soon, Jiyu Chengrui's laughter could be heard. She heaved a sigh of relief and waited in place. When Jiyu Chengrui came over, Zhu Ying smelled the faint smell of blood on him and asked worriedly, "Rui, you're injured?" "I'm fine, as it's not my blood. A seriously injured person came in the evening, and I stabilized him before rushing back. I'm sorry for making you worried. It's good that you're fine. I was just afraid that Qiao Lansheng was causing you trouble. Don't worry, if he's smart, he won't, at least not when the situation is unclear. I'm guessing he'll only make a move after he knows most of General Zhu's men and where they are stationed." Jiyu Chengrui added, "By the way, today is the 15th day of the 12th lunar month, and I saw many on the streets preparing New Year's goods. Shouldn't we also prepare New Year's items and gifts for each family?" "New Year's gift? Oh, right, but not only for the villagers but also for Manager Liu, Dr. Luo, County Mayor Kong, and more. Since we are acquaintances, we should at least show our appreciation for the new year." Zhu Ying nodded in agreement. If he had not mentioned it, she would have forgotten about it. After returning home, Zhu Ying heated dinner for him, then took out a pen and paper and wrote down a list of gifts. It was easy to prepare the villagers' gifts. They would bring some rice, noodles, meat, and more wine during the new year, which should be fine. The problematic parts were County Mayor Kong and some others. If they gave too much, it would seem that they were currying favor, and it would be ugly if they gave less. When Jiyu Chengrui returned, he saw her spinning her pen in a daze. He tapped her head and asked, "What are you thinking about?" "New Year's gift. What do you think should be given to County Mayor Kong and the others?" Zhu Ying raised her head and asked. Jiyu Chengrui looked at her pouting red lips and leaned in to kiss her. "Wine and tea are a must, adding some dried fruits and meat will do. This way, it won't look like bribery, and it won't look shabby." "Fruits? Are they for sale in town now?" "Yes, they're prepared for the new year. There are mandarins, oranges, apples, and pears, and I didn't see anything else." "Is it very different from the one in our interspace?" "Huge difference. The ones in the interspace are too big and too fresh, so we can't use them. But if it's not fruit, it should be fine. Then let's buy some tomorrow and send it out as soon as possible so that you won't keep thinking about it." "All right, leave this to me." Jiyu Chengrui patted his chest and said. After that, the two of them entered the interspace. Jiyu Chengrui immediately went to work while Zhu Ying took out 2 pots. One was filled with pig trotters, and the other had only 3 pork trotters. She took out a large pressure cooker and started making beef sauce. After she was done, she went to the factory area and used the blender to make 3 pots of meatballs. 1 pot of fish meatballs, 1 pot of beef meatballs, and the last pot being pork meatballs. She then proceeded to freeze them. She found homemade cured meat, sausages, chicken, and fish in a warehouse. After that, she prepared a bag of the dried fruits she got from the Qiao family, such as golden jujubes, longans, lotus seeds, raisins, walnuts, and so on. Finally, she added a bag of pine nuts and hazelnuts. After ensuring everything was ready, she hung the fruits outside and packed the rest. Chapter 159 New Year's Gift 2. When Jiyu Chengrui returned, only the smell of meat was left. He couldn't help but ask, "Babe, did you make more braised pig trotters? Your nose is almost as sharp as Zhuang's." Zhu Ying laughed. "Yes, it's braised pork trotters, and I made a pot of them. I put them outside, so if you want to eat, you can when we go out later." "A New Year's gift for Brother Zhu?" "That's right. He's our patron now, so since he loves good food, We will satisfy him on that front. You're right. Do you think we should roast 2 ducks and send them over too? The roast duck I made isn't authentic enough. It's just a change of taste. It's not quite the same, but it's more than enough to compete with. Oh right, roast 1 more, and we'll eat it tomorrow night. After Ju Ying heard this, she turned and looked over teasingly. Why did it sound like he asked because he wanted to eat it? I'm going out to slaughter the ducks. Jiyu Chengru's face turned red, and he immediately ran away. Seeing this, Ju Ying didn't say anything more. It wasn't late yet, so she yeasted 500 pounds of white flour and made some bread and buns. After that, she prepared the necessary seasonings for the roast duck. The most important was the jujube wood, the crucial ingredient in the roast duck. Although other wood could be used, it would lack the fruity smoke flavor. When Jiyu Chungrue brought the ducks over, he had already used a small stick to prop up the duck's cavity. After washing the duck's belly with boiling water, he seared the skin, added sugar, and hung it up to dry the skin. It would take a long time, so they cleaned up a little while waiting. When the steamed buns were cooked, they put them into a warehouse and went out of the interspace to sleep. After waking up, Ju Ying went back into her interspace to plug the ducks and put them on the grill to roast slowly. She took the duck down when the fat was rendered. She kept the one with slightly broken skin in the storeroom to keep it warm and took the other 2 out of the interspace. Coincidentally, Jiyu Chungrue had also finished preparing breakfast. After the 2 of them finished eating, Jiyu Chungrue set aside a pair of pig trotters. After all, giving a gift as a pair was better. They wrapped the rest of the things in oil paper and placed them in 2 tubs. They later used Tian Jiawang's cart to send the stuff to Manager Liu. Uncle Liu, please help us give these to General Ju. It's a New Year's gift from us. Oh, why didn't you guys give it to him personally yesterday? He left in a hurry, and we didn't manage to make it in time. That's true. Leave it to me then. Thank you. It's full of food, so it would be to hurry up the delivery. Sure. Do you have any extra vermicelli on your side? General Ju said it was a pity that he forgot to get some from you yesterday. Yes, of course. Please wait a moment, and we'll return to get it now. Ju Ying said so and left Hongyun restaurant with Jiyu Chungrue. However, Jiyu Chungrue went to his clinic, while Ju Ying and Tian Jiawang returned to her restaurant. Ju Ying went to the kitchen and used that as a disguise to take out 5 pounds of vermicelli from her interspace. After hesitating, she took another 5 pounds of spicy dried tofu and 2 jars of the restaurant's most expensive green bamboo shoots. She also wrote down the recipe and eating method for the roast duck and sent them back to Hongyun restaurant. After leaving Hongyun restaurant, she wasn't in a hurry to return. Instead, she strolled around the streets and realized that there were many hawker stalls along the streets. Not only were fruits around, but there were also stalls selling beef and mutton. Although the quantity was small, there were many people around. There were all sorts of dried fruits, various desserts, and snacks. There were also frozen fish, mainly small yellow croakers and pomfrets. She also didn't expect to see second Uncle Jiyu and Jiyu Chengshi setting up a stall on the street to sell snacks. Chapter 160 New Year's Gift, 3. They mainly sold the recipes she provided, along with some date cakes and yellow rice cakes. If she guessed correctly, they should also be millet cakes. Of course, there were also expensive desserts, but a cloth covered them. She had wanted to walk past them, but after seeing second Uncle Jiyu looking over, she had no choice but to walk over. Second Uncle, how's business? It's all right, much better than a few days ago. How come you have time to go shopping? It's almost the new year, so I came out to buy some New Year's gifts. Oh, right. It's already the 16th, and it's time to prepare for that. You haven't tried your Aunt Liu and second aunt's cooking, have you? Second Uncle Jiyu asked. I'll give you some. Oh, it's all right. You should keep it and sell it for money. Ju Ying quickly stopped him. Finally, she pointed at the yellow cake. This cake looks too plain. You can try adding some raisins, dried dates, or red beans on top or in the middle. That's true. I'll bring it up to them later. Second Uncle Jiyu nodded in agreement. All right, you guys continue. When Ju Ying said this, she looked at Jiyu Chengxi, who was curled up in the cold. Chengxi, if you're cold, get up and move around. It will get colder sitting there. I know, third sister-in-law. Jiyu Chengxi raised his head and said. Ju Ying was stunned when she saw the cold sores on his face, but she didn't say anything. Instead, she ordered some dried fruits, small yellow croakers, and other fish. After making the reservation, she returned to her restaurant and got busy. In the afternoon, the dried fruits, frozen fish, and fresh fruits Jiyu Chengrui ordered arrived. Ju Ying asked for them to be placed in the warehouse. In the evening, Ju Ying didn't tell Da Hua to go back. Instead, she asked her to go with Qiu Niang and Chun Niang to make as many desserts as possible so that she could gift them. The next day, after the gifts were prepared, she gave them to Sun Hongliang and Jiyu Chengrui. The men send the gifts in the name of Grassland Taste Restaurant. Meanwhile, she carried 2 pounds each of desserts, dried fruits, beef, and mutton to send to the neighboring shops with good relations. Of course, there were many returned gifts 3 days later. The shops nearby gave away their own goods, plus some dried fruits. As for the county mayor and the others, they return with many gifts too. The county mayor gave a complete set of expensive stationery, 2 batches of silk cloth, 2 boxes of the most expensive desserts in the county, and a set of gold jewelry. The others were primarily rolls of cloth and different fruits, some gave sets of silver jewelry, and some gave makeup. Dr. Luo was the most pragmatic of all. He gave Jiyu Chengrui a set of silver needles, 2 boxes of snake oil ointment for hand protection, and a pair of gold bracelets. In the end, it was manager Liu who gave the most. A large bag of each of the following: dried fruit, fresh fruit, cured meat, and dried meat. 2 jars of wine, 8 pieces of high-quality cloth in different colors, 2 sets of stationery, 2 high-quality stamps, a collection of gold jewelry, and a set of white jade jewelry. Ju Ying was speechless after receiving these. This was an exorbitant amount of gifts, and she felt rich just by receiving them. Sun Hongliang laughed at her shocked expression. Don't be surprised, as it's just a small gift from them. Their business has been doing very well since they launched their braised meat products. Moreover, there are more than 30 Hongyun restaurants in the entire country. So, who's the one getting rich here? That's because of their abilities. But since you've said so, I'll accept it with peace of mind. Ju Ying said with a smile. After that, Manager Liu personally came in a horse carriage and said, Ms. Ju, come here quickly. General Ju's return gift has arrived. You split the gifts into 2 waves. Ju Ying smiled and greeted him. Chapter 161 New Year's Gift, 4, of course. One of them represents Hongyun Restaurant, and the other is General Ju's personal gift. Manager Liu said with a smile. After that, he had people carry all the gifts into the backyard and said, Oh right, General Ju requested that I ask you for more hot pot ingredients. There wasn't enough on his side, and they almost fought. It's a little late today. How about tomorrow? I'll send it to you tomorrow morning. That's fine. Oh, right, this is the list of gifts. Keep it well. Manager Liu said as he gave her the list of gifts and left with his men. Ju Ying looked at the gift list and found it mainly seafood. They were mostly of the more precious big yellow croaker and sea bass. There were also 8 batches of silk, brocade, and other high-quality silks. Other than cloth, there were 4 ornaments, 4 small and 4 big vases, and some more jewelry. What puzzled her was that there were also a pair of daggers at the end. What was the meaning of this? Did he put these there to remind them that there was danger? After thinking it through, she went forward to take a look. The seafood was still frozen because of the cold weather, and she just glanced at the rest quickly. Finally, she found the box where the dagger was kept. After opening it, she saw 2 daggers covered with a leather case. She casually picked up one dagger and pulled it out. Suddenly, a cold silver light flashed, almost blinding her eyes. After getting used to it, she looked at it carefully. The appearance was ordinary, but it was not difficult to guess that this pair of daggers was precious based on the cold glint that flashed. They were probably the most expensive of all the gifts General Ju had sent over. She kept some seafood and put it in the warehouse for the restaurant staff to eat for the new year, while the rest were all kept in her room. When Qian Zhuang came over, they loaded all the valuable things, as well as the gifts prepared for the villagers, onto the cart and brought them home. After returning home, Zhu Ying put all the valuable things, including all kinds of materials, into her interspace. She then began to prepare gifts for the elders in the village. They preferred dried fruits, snacks, and meat. For the meat, she prepared 2 pounds of beef, mutton, and fish for each family. What was left were the patriarch and the village chief. She added silk clothes and an extra big yellow croaker for them. In the end, she prepared 2 batches of ordinary satin for the Jiyu family. She threw in a set of dark grey satin with flowers and another batch of the oldest dark green satin. Of course, these were worn mainly by men. After hesitating, she threw in a huge piece of pig's hind. Jiyu Chungrui laughed when he saw this. Are you trying to avoid giving anything to Mrs. Liu and the others? If they don't mind, they can wear it too, right? Maybe they can wear it in a few years. Zhu Ying said it in a weird tone. To be honest, if it weren't for the fact that she had given some expensive cloths to the patriarch and the village chief, she wouldn't have given the Jiyu family anything. Since she had to give some, it wasn't appropriate to purposely not provide anything to Mrs. Liu and Mrs. Yarrow entirely, so she gave what she saw fit. You're so polite. Are you coming with me or do I go by myself? You can send these to the 4 elders of the clan by yourself. I'll go with you to the village chief's place, the patriarch's place, and our old house. Alright, I'll go by myself first, then. Well, go to the 3 houses after dinner, so you go on ahead to start cooking. Jiyu Chungrui suggested and went out with the gifts. Zhu Ying turned around and went to start cooking. After dinner, the couple put their stuff in the interspace and went out. The first place they went to was the village chief's house. When they arrived, the whole family was still having dinner, so they politely said a few words and put down the gifts before heading their way. Next, they went to the patriarch's house. The family had already finished their meal, and only the patriarch and Mrs. Wang were chatting in the living room. After the couple entered, Jiyu Chungrui immediately went up to them and greeted, "Uncle, I am here to wish you a happy new year in advance." Chapter 162 New Year's Gift, 5, Come, come. Have a seat while I make some tea. The patriarch looked at the things they were carrying and smiled happily. Of course, he wasn't happy just because of their expensive gifts, and it was just that this was their first time visiting him for the new year. After noticing the expensive gifts, it showed him that they respected him a lot. "Oh, you guys, take a seat." Mrs. Wang stood up and greeted them with a smile. "Auntie, you should take the food now, especially the meat. It might spoil if you wait any further." Zhu Ying told her as she placed the clothes on the brick bed, giving her the rest. Sure. Just have a seat, and I'll be right back." Mrs. Wang took the things and went out of the living room. She quickly brought in a pot of tea and poured them a cup. After that, they greeted the couple politely, and the patriarch asked them about their lives or if they needed any help. The 2 of them answered that all was well. When they finished their tea and were about to leave, the patriarch smiled and said, "Ying, your restaurant sells beef and mutton daily. On the 30th of the month, can you spare a cow's head to pay respects to our ancestors? I'll pay you at the market price. I've been to the meat market for the past 2 days, and it was quite in demand and hard to get." "Only the head?" Zhu Ying shook her head after asking. "You don't need to pay," and well, before she could finish, the patriarch interrupted, "As long as it's a cow's head, it's fine. I must pay for this as this is an important matter for the clan, and it's not about favors." "Alright then, well, take a break on the 28th, I'll send it to you by the 29th at the latest." "Okay, thank you. Otherwise, it would have been hard to get a hold of this. You two have a good night. We still have to make a trip over there. Go on, and have a good talk there. Let me know if they don't know what's good for them and make unreasonable requests. I'll deal with them." Zhu Ying smiled but didn't reply. Instead, she walked out with Jiyu Chungrui. By the time they arrived at the Jiyu residence, they had finished their meal. Only Father Jiyu and Madame Chiao were left in the living room chatting. The couple put down their gifts and said, "Grandma, Dad, I wish you two a happy new year in advance." Madame Chow immediately got up. Good, good, it's good that you're here. Quickly sit down so I can chat with you too. Father Gu stood up and made way for them when he saw this. He went outside and asked Mrs. Guo to prepare tea for them. Soon, everyone knew the couple was here to deliver New Year's gifts, and they all ran in one by one. They were all people who had seen all the luxury the world had to offer. If it were in the past, no one would be interested in such small gifts, but they were more than satisfied now. Especially the children, who were used to luxury. Therefore, all of them greeted the couple with smiles. Only Mrs. Liu and Mrs. Yarrow saw through their intentions. Even if they gave them the gifts, it wasn't something the two ladies could use, and their faces darkened. But before they could open their mouths, Madame Chow warned them with her eyes. Don't they know what they've done before? It was already kind of them to bring so many gifts, especially cloth. What else could they be dissatisfied with? Thus, the entire room was quiet except for Madame Chow's. She was asking how they had been these days. Naturally, Jiyu Chungrue didn't play it down. He emphasized the past when he lived on the mountain, and everyone was embarrassed to say anything. Even Mrs. Liu and Mrs. Yarrow's heads drooped. After seeing that it was effective, Jiyu Chungrue added, "But don't worry, Grandma. We're doing fine now." At the same time, this experience also made us understand the meaning of only through suffering can one rise above others. Only after suffering will you know how to cherish your current life, and only after suffering will you be able to move forward step by step. Chapter 163 New Year's Gift, 6, well said. Only those who have suffered will know what is sweet. Madame Chow nodded in agreement. She then looked at Zhu Ying. Ying, I'm sorry that you've suffered in this family. Thank you for bringing Chungrue along and supporting your little family. That's right. Madame Chow had always thought that a young master who had never suffered wouldn't be enlightened that quickly. She could still see that her two sons hadn't completely let go of their luxurious past. Only Zhu Ying, who had grown up at the bottom of society, could survive tenaciously and influence Jiyu Chungrue simultaneously. This was also why Madame Chow suddenly asked Mrs. Liu to find a farmer's girl for Jiyu Chungye. Unfortunately, she didn't understand that a small family couldn't live without a reliable and capable man to take care of it too. Thank you for the praise, Grandma. We husband and wife are one, so it's necessary to support each other. Zhu Ying replied with a smile. Yes, yes. Husband and wife are supposed to be one. Since you've both thought it through, you should be able to live your life well in the future. Madame Chow nodded in agreement. After exchanging a few more pleasantries, the couple left. After seeing them out, Father Jiyu said, "Both of you are newly married this year, and it's Zhu Ying's first year in the family. So, you two can come here on the 30th to spend the new year together." Jiyu Chungrue and Zhu Ying looked at each other and replied, "All right, we'll be here on time." No matter what their purpose was, they couldn't refuse him. After all, it was a custom here to spend the night together on the 30th. In addition, the whole village would have a big New Year's greeting on the morning of the first day of the new year. If they didn't go, Mrs. Liu and the others would spread the news, and the good image they had crafted would drop. Of course, if they dared to find trouble, then don't blame them for falling out. After the two returned home, they snuffed the fire and entered the interspace. Zhu Ying used a frying machine to stir-fry 2 pots of hot pot seasoning, cut them into small pieces, and mix a large jar of dipping sauce. Finally, she prepared 50 kilograms of vermicelli and 50 kilograms of spicy beef jerky. This should be enough for Brother Zhu. After they were done, Zhu Ying remembered the dagger. When Jiyu Chungrue returned, she handed him a dagger and said, "This is from Brother Zhu, and we can keep one for each of us for self-defense." Jiyu Chungrue opened it and took a look. "This is really good stuff, and it's as good as a specially-made scalpel. But you should take it. I'm better off using my scalpel." "That's fine too, so let's just leave it here. I also think that using a boning knife is easier for my daily tasks. Also, you're making us sound like executioners," Zhu Ying said with a smile. "Haha, but when it's time to act, don't hesitate. Otherwise, we'll be the ones to lose our lives." Jiyu Chungrue continued, "It seems that when we butcher pigs, cows, and sheep in the future, we should slaughter them alive. This way, we can practice. Remember, no matter if it's a human or an animal, no matter where you attack from, you have to tilt it at about 45 degrees and stab it in the heart. Only then can you kill it in one stroke. Ju Ying nodded. I hope I don't need to use this advice in my life. Jiyu Chungrui didn't force her. After all, she had her interspace and many ways to defend herself. The next day, under manager Liu's astonished gaze, Ju Ying put down the goods and returned to her restaurant. After Qian Zhuang and the others returned in the evening, Ju Ying said, tomorrow, you don't have to go collect vegetables for the next 2 days. Go to other towns or counties and sell the cow and sheep heads in our ice cellar. She thought of this after leaving the patriarch's house yesterday. The cow and sheep heads at the end of the year were much more expensive than usual, especially the sheep, and it would bring them a great profit if sold individually. Chapter 164 New Year's Gift, 7, Cow and Sheep Heads. After Qian Zhuang heard this, he and Jiyu Erjiang looked at each other and immediately understood what she meant. They nodded and continued, sure, we'll sell the cow and sheep heads in stock. By the way, you two can also keep an eye on the market price of the beef and mutton intestines. If the price is right, sell the ones we have lying around. As for the matter regarding money or taking them from the warehouse, you can look for Manager Sunday. No problem, leave it to us. Qian Zhuang patted his chest and stated. Ju Ying did not expect these to be sold out so quickly in 2 days, especially the cow heads. Ju Ying even had to instruct Sun Hongliang to leave one for her especially. In the blink of an eye, it was the 28th day of the month. Ju Ying gave Sun Hongliang, Tian Jiawang, Da Hua, and the 2 waiters who didn't stay in the restaurant 5 pounds of beef, the same amount of lamb, a big yellow croaker, a base, and 2 pounds of snacks and dried fruits each. After that, Ju Ying calculated that they had made a net profit of 6,668 taels of silver in a month. Thus, she announced, everyone, wait a moment. You've all worked hard this month, and it's also the new year. Since the restaurant covers your meals, I won't bother giving you all more food. I'll give you an extra month's salary as a bonus. Everyone, please use this to buy some New Year goods or new clothes. Thank you, mistress. Thank you so much. Sun Hongliang smiled and bowed. The others immediately echoed this gratitude. Ju Ying smiled. I also wish everyone good health in the new year and a happy life. After that, she gave each of them an extra month's salary. When less than 200 copper coins were left, Ju Ying took some extra copper from her purse and put it in a red packet. She handed 100 copper coins each to Li Yu and Da Hua. This is the New Year's money for the 2 of you. Keep it and buy some candy to enjoy the new year. Thank you, mistress. I wish you great fortune in the next year. Li Yu took it with a smile. Haha, this blessing is common, but I like it very much. The crowd burst into laughter. Thank you, Auntie Jiyu, Da Hua said, blushing. I wish you will get prettier as each year passes. Ju Ying was stunned for a moment, as she didn't expect her to say words of blessing. Auntie Jiyu loves this blessing, too, she said, going up and ruffling her hair. I also wish my Da Hua would grow up to be a beautiful lady. Tian Jiawang also laughed when he saw this. His sister was right to send her here, as she finally learned to integrate into her surrounding environment. When Jiyu Chungrui reached the restaurant at night, they didn't go home. Everyone had a happy early New Year's Eve gathering dinner. Ju Ying entrusted the restaurant to Zhao Cheng and Li Sheng the following day. Once that was done, she, Qian Zhuang, and Jiyu Erjiang delivered the gifts she had prepared to the manor's long-term workers. The gifts for them were different from the others. She prepared 10 pounds of white flour and polished rice, 2 pounds of dried fruits, sugar cubes, desserts, and added 2 pounds of fish for each worker. However, the one prepared for Uncle Nyan was different. He had 2 pounds of dried fruits and snacks, a big pork joint, 2 braised fish, a roasted chicken, 2 pounds of 5-spice and spicy dried tofu, and finally, 100 frozen dumplings that were especially left for him yesterday. With these things, he could have a scrumptious new year. After arriving in the village, Ju Ying ordered some villagers to slaughter 2 more sheep and distribute the meat to everyone. However, She kept the bones and gave the lamb intestines to Uncle Nyan because she heard that the old man was good at making a feast out of them. All the workers were naturally delighted after receiving the gifts, and they finally acknowledged Ju Ying as their mistress. This was because Elder Qiao never once prepared New Year's gifts for them. At most, he would order a sheep to be slaughtered for everyone to eat when he was happy. Chapter 165 New Year 1. Amidst a warm farewell, Ju Ying and the other two left the village. Of course, Qian Zhuang and Jiyu Hanjiang also had their New Year's gifts, just like Tian Jiawang and the others. There was still the cow's head left. After arriving at the village, Ju Ying gave the cow's head to the patriarch and got a tael of silver as payment. She had also accepted another job. The patriarch had asked her to prepare 6 types of fried offerings for tomorrow. In the afternoon, Ju Ying cleaned the house from inside to outside, and Jiyu Chungrui rushed back with a zhuang when she was almost done. "Why are you back so early?" Ju Ying asked in surprise. "It'll be the 30th tomorrow, so we left early." Jiyu Chungrui explained and handed her a silver note. "This is the bonus from before the new year. Although it's not as much as the restaurant, it's still a decent chuck." Ju Ying took it and glanced at it. It was a silver note worth 100 taels. She nodded in agreement. "It's quite the sum. By the way, I've been cleaning the whole afternoon so you can cook dinner." "No problem. Let's have noodles and tomato egg soup today." "All right, I'll prepare the ingredients for you." Ju Ying agreed, and she took out all the ingredients he needed. As soon as she came out of the kitchen, she saw Sister Tian walking in with a basket. "I thought you guys should be back, and I prepared some New Year's goods. I brought some over for you because I assumed you didn't prepare anything. Do try out my cooking." She handed the basket to her and turned to leave. "Thank you, Sister Tian." Ju Ying quickly thanked her. She carried the basket into the kitchen and opened the cloth to take a look. In the middle was a large bowl of meatballs fried with minced meat and steamed buns. There were also cakes wrapped in straw paper, dumplings, and sesame seed goodies. After putting everything in her interspace, she washed the basket and returned it with a big bowl of fried yellow croaker. After dinner, Ju Ying and Jiyu Chungrui chatted for a while, then went to the interspace to cook more. They made a batch of everything fried, such as hemp leaves, small dough sticks, fried peas, and fried pancakes. The next day, Jiyu Chungrui went to the ancestral hall early in the morning with the fried food. Ju Ying tidied up the house and put a big bowl of fried small yellow croaker, 1 whole pork shank, and 2 pounds of 5-spice shredded tofu in a basket. This was the dish they would bring to the Jiyu family's house tonight. When they were almost done, they went to the ancestral hall. It was packed full of people. The men brought their children to pay respects to their ancestors, while the women set up a shed nearby to cook. This left her a little dumbfounded. As an ex-northerner, she had only heard of these lively ancestral worship ceremonies but had never seen them in real life. "Chengru's wife, come and help us. We would love to try your cooking." 6th Aunt Jiyu stood in the shed and waved at her. "Oh, hi, I'm coming." Ju Ying responded and walked over. She found that there was a lot of food inside, and it was no wonder they were busy here, even with so many people. "Oh, you know how to make crispy pork, right? The patriarch always complained that we didn't fry it crispy enough." 6th Aunt Jiyu turned her head and asked. "Yes. The key is in the flour if you want the crispy pork to be delicious. The meat has to be marinated thoroughly, and the meat has to be tenderized." Ju Ying washed her hands and began to get busy. After she marinated the meat, Mrs. Wang quietly walked over and said, "Ying, didn't you bring anything when you came?" Chapter 166 New Year 2. Bring what? Ju Ying turned her head and asked in confusion. "Didn't anyone tell you? Please say what you want, as I do not understand what you mean." "You mean," Mrs. Wang didn't know what to say when she saw her confused look. After that, she pulled her aside and asked, "You know that we need to burn paper money to pay respects to our ancestors, right? You've already separated from your main family and are now independent, so you must prepare some paper money for each ancestor. There's also pork and noodles for the offering. Although they were bought with money from the clan, Each family would also prepare some more food when they came. Basically, just some simple cooking or offerings. Ju Ying nodded and said, "The patriarch told us to prepare some fried goods, so we didn't prepare anything else. However, it's probably too late to buy paper money now. How about this? I still have some paper money left at home, so come with me." "No matter what, you need some," said Mrs. Wang. "Sure, I'll let sixth aunt know." Ju Ying agreed, and she went to her. "Sixth aunt, I'm going out for a while. I'll fry the crispy meat when I come back." After that, the two women hurried out. Ju Ying quickly cut the paper money while Mrs. Wang helped arrange them. After 15 minutes, they had a stack ready. Mrs. Wang measured the thickness and said, "It should be enough, so remember to give it to Chung Rui. He'll have to go to the ancestral hall to burn these." "Oh right, incense too. Chung Rui will need these too," Mrs. Wang said as she turned around, took out a small incense stick from the cabinet drawer, and handed it to her. "Let's go." "Thank you so much, Auntie," said Ju Ying after they went out. "Otherwise, we would have made a fool of ourselves today. You can't be blamed for this since no one told you about it. You wouldn't know about this otherwise." Mrs. Wang couldn't help but ridicule Madame Chiao and the others at this time. How could those elders not tell the younger generation about such an important thing? What an irresponsible bunch. She didn't know Madame Chiao and the others had long forgotten this rule. When they were in the capital, they only returned with gifts yearly and had never participated in ancestral worship. Paying respects to their ancestors in the capital was a simplified process. The servants had prepared those during the New Year and festivals, and the masters were there just for formality. So they always assumed it was the same over here as well. Father Jiyu and second uncle Jiyu were stuck in a rut when the two women returned. The patriarch was going around and exchanging the things they needed and asking the other clan members to give them a portion if they had any extra. Just as Jiyu Chung Rui was thinking of asking someone else for some, Ju Ying walked to his side. "Crazy, right? These are for you. Later on, watch what others do and quickly learn. Don't make a fool of ourselves again." Jiyu Chung Rui saw the items in her hands and almost kissed her on the spot. He took it and exclaimed excitedly, "You really are my savior. All right, I can't be here anymore. I have to go and cook." After Ju Ying clenched her fist to cheer him on, she turned around and returned to the shed to help with the cooking. The main dishes were crispy meat and stir-fried vegetables, most of which were almost finished. Just as she was about to start cooking, she suddenly heard a series of shouts, followed by a commotion. Since she couldn't enter the ancestral hall, she couldn't be bothered to go over. Instead, she continued her cooking. When it was time to eat, she was dumbfounded again. After cooking all this time, no woman was allowed at the table, and they could only hide in the shed and eat. Also, they could only eat steamed buns with vegetables, which was frustrating to her. This also reminded her of the status of men and women in this society. No wonder Mrs. Liu didn't dare say anything to Father Jiyu, no matter how arrogant she was. Chapter 167 New Year, 3. After the meal, Ju Ying went out to look for Jiyu Chung Rui after helping to clean up the mess. She didn't expect to be surrounded by so many people. Some were complimenting him, while others were trying to please him, almost treating him like an emperor. Jiyu Chung Rui was trying his best to deal with them, so his eyes lit up brightly when he saw her coming toward him. He immediately stood up and said, "Uncles and brothers, please excuse me. I still have things to do at home, so let's talk another day." After that, he bowed, cupped his hands, and then hurriedly walked to Ju Ying. The crowd looked at him, immediately laughed, and began teasing the two. However, the couple pretended not to hear them and quickly rushed home. When they arrived home, Ju Ying looked at him, rubbing his cheeks, and asked curiously, "Really? So happy until your face is stiff from all that smiling?" "It's just a fake smile." Jiyu Chung Rui was speechless. "What happened? Do you know that every household will burn incense? I heard an aunt mention it, but I don't understand the customs. I only found out after the event. Whoever's incense burned the brightest would have a better year." At this time, Ju Ying remembered the exclamations she had heard while cooking. "So, our incense burned the brightest?" "That's right, A bright and strong flame. That's why they've been pestering me, saying that if there's any more way I have to earn money next year, we'll have to bring them along. What an old way of thinking. Ju Ying shook her head. But if they come to you again, you can tell them to plant more chilies and vegetables to provide for our restaurant, she added. That's fine. Otherwise, I'm afraid they wouldn't let us go this easily. Jiyu Chungrui nodded in agreement. Right now, the chilies they were using mainly came from her interspace. This wasn't a long-term solution, and this matter needed to be dealt with sooner or later. Afterwards, Ju Ying turned on the fire and cooked for Zhuang. She boiled a pot of water and made a pot of chrysanthemum tea for the two of them, and they rested before carrying the things they had prepared to the Jiyu manor. Jiyu Chengshi, waiting at the door, saw them and immediately came forward to greet them. Chungrui, third sister-in-law, I knew you would be here soon. Then, two little girls ran over and greeted sweetly, third brother, third sister-in-law. Ju Ying regretted that she had forgotten to prepare some snacks, so she had to use the basket as a cover to grab a large number of fruit candies from her interspace and divide them. Don't eat it all at once, or you'll have a toothache. Thank you, third sister-in-law. The two girls immediately ran in with a smile after getting the candy. Third sister-in-law, I'll help you carry the basket. Jiyu Chengshi said as he took the basket. No need. I'm going to the kitchen, so we'll need these later. Ju Ying shook her head. Let's go in and check how much you've learned. Jiyu Chungrui put his arm around Jiyu Chengxi's shoulder and walked in. Ah, Chungrui, maybe not during the new year. Jiyu Chengxi immediately wailed. Seeing this, Ju Ying shook her head and went to the kitchen with her basket. She saw Mrs. Guo and Mrs. Sun busy inside and Jiyu Ziqiong sitting in front of the stove, quietly stoking the fire. Aunt Guo, Aunt Sun, Happy New Year, sixth sister, she greeted. Nice, you are here. Oh, you shouldn't have brought more food, there's really no need, Madam Sun enthusiastically replied. She knew that the couple had been secretly helping her son, Chengxi. Otherwise, Chengxi wouldn't have been able to eat his fill at home. It's nothing much, just 2 dishes. You guys can arrange it as you see fit. Ju Ying said as she handed her the basket and told her what to do with it. Is there anything else I can help you all with? She asked. Chapter 168 New Year, 4, Not really. You can go inside and chat with them, as just us being here will be enough. Mrs. Guo turned her head and spoke with a smile. Ju Ying's status was different from before. Mrs. Guo might need to ask her for assistance in the future, so she couldn't order her around like before. Yes, don't worry about it. If there are too many people here, it will hinder our movement anyway. Mrs. Sun quickly echoed. All right, if you need anything, just call me. Ju Ying reminded them as she turned around and walked back to the living room. Ying, you're here. Come and sit with Grandma. As soon as Madame Chiao saw her come in, she immediately waved her hands. Ju Ying paused and sat next to Madame Chiao after greeting several other elders. She looked at the dark green top she was wearing and said, Grandma, you look lovely in this color. Really? I do quite like this color, and it's all thanks to you. When Madame Chiao said this, she sized her up and asked, Why aren't you wearing any new clothes during the new year? I'm wearing new clothes too. As for my New Year's clothes, I'm planning to wear them tomorrow, which is the actual day of the new year. She explained as she drew her burgundy cloak. That's lovely. You're still young, so you should make more clothes to wear when you have the money. Otherwise, you'll look like a bucket no matter what you wear when you're old and out of shape. You won't look good in them then. I'll do as you advise, then. By the way, you've been married for more than 3 months. Are there any movements in your body? Her question stumped Ju Ying. She quickly realized what she meant when she saw Madame Chiao's eyes staring at her stomach. There's no hurry. We're still young and want to save up some money, so we'll wait until things have completely stabilized before trying for one, she said, smiling. That's true. You wake up early and sleep late at night daily, so it's not suitable for you to have one now. However, you have to do it while you're still young. It'll be hard for you to have children when you're older. I'll take that to heart, Grandma. Ju Ying nodded. Mrs. Liu sneered as she ate melon seeds while looking at them happily chatting, especially at Madame Chiao. How could she not know that this old hag disliked the poor and favored the rich? If Madame Chiao had treated Ju Ying like this back then, their family would be the ones getting wealthy. However, since her son and her husband had repeatedly warned her, she only treated them as background noise and continued eating her melon seeds. When Mrs. Yarrow saw this, she was happy about Mrs. Liu's loss but also didn't want to offend Ju Ying again. Thus, she was happy enough to watch the drama between them. Father Jiyu, second uncle Jiyu, and Jiyu Chengji were all reserved and quiet on the men's side. Only Jiyu Chengye and Jiyu Chengshi kept Jiyu Chengrue company and chatted with him about all kinds of topics, from mathematics to food. Jiyu Chengshi thought of hot pot and smiled awkwardly. Chengrue, I haven't eaten hot pot before. When are you going to treat me to a meal? Father did say it's delicious. I heard good things, especially about the tripe. I heard it's numbing, spicy, chewy, and that anyone who eats it will want to eat more. Ahem. Second uncle Jiyu coughed and quipped, if you want to eat it, just say you want to eat it. Don't drag me into the conversation. Jiyu Chengshi secretly pouted. He had been taught to be honest, but in the end, the person who taught him didn't do the same, the hypocrisy. Seeing this, Jiyu Chengrue smirked internally and said, there's no problem if you want to eat a hot pot. How about we have lunch there tomorrow afternoon? Really? Jiyu Chengshi was overjoyed. Then, as if afraid Jiyu Chengrue would regret his decision, he quickly turned his head to his father. Father, I'll go to third brother's house for lunch tomorrow. You don't have to wait for me for lunch. Go, but don't cause trouble, understand? Second uncle Jiyu said it through gritted teeth. At the same time, he cursed inwardly, this little heartless brat. He isn't even going to suggest bringing his father along with him for such a good opportunity. Chapter 169 New Year, 5, soon, dinner was ready. Ju Ying got up and helped to set the table. After the meal was served, they were divided into two tables, as usual, men and women. After the dishes were served, Madame Chiao instantly recognized the dishes Ju Ying had brought and then said to Mrs. Yarrow on the side, give me some of each of the 3 dishes Ju Ying had brought. I want to see if her cooking has improved. All right, just sit tight. Mrs. Yarrow stood up and handed her a portion of each dish. Of course, she also gave her and her daughter-in-law a portion. When everyone saw this, they immediately took some too. It was mainly because Mrs. Guo and Mrs. Sun's dishes were ordinary, and everyone had long been tired of eating them. When they saw a more delicious option, they naturally didn't hesitate. Ju Ying didn't join in the fun but ate the other dishes. Of course, another person did not participate in the snatching. It was the pregnant Mrs. Yang. However, she had a mother-in-law to serve her, making her attitude high and mighty. It was as if she were no different from their previous lives. It was the same for the men's table with Ju Ying's food finishing the fastest. Ju Chengye picked up the last bit of yellow croquer and said, Chengrue is sure blessed. Sister-in-law's dishes are getting better and better. Yes, it's better than the meal we had at noon. Second uncle Jiyu nodded in agreement. To be honest, whether it's delicious or not is mostly due to the seasoning. The seasoning for lunch is simple, but these dishes are made in a restaurant with enough prep. Jiyu Chengrue said so proudly. How could he not be proud? His wife started cooking when she was 8 years old and could make all kinds of dishes. Maybe some dishes weren't as good as those prepared by professional chefs, as she hadn't obtained authentic recipes, but her skills were definitely at the level of a chef. Everyone was speechless after looking at his smug expression as they remembered his cold attitude towards her before. They hadn't expected that his attitude would take a turn after a few months. If they weren't sure that he hadn't been replaced, they would have thought he was entirely someone else. They didn't know they had found the truth, but this truth was completely buried in the ground. Among them, Jiyu Chengji was the one with the most mixed feelings. Honestly, he had looked down on the couple before, especially regarding status. He was the son of his father's first wife, and his wife was the daughter of a government official. They were the best in the family. On the other hand, one of them was an illegitimate son who had lost his biological mother, while the other was an illegitimate daughter the family completely ignored. They were born with statues that were worlds apart. But in the end, Jiyu Chengji had to work hard daily to earn just 20 copper coins to support the family, while his wife stayed home to take care of the baby. As for the other couple, one was a respected doctor, and the other was raking in money. They were thriving and completely different from before. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but look at his wife, Mrs. Yang. As expected, she still looked aloof from the reality they were in. Jiyu Chengji thought about the child in her stomach, and he suddenly had a headache. He couldn't afford to have a child with just 20 copper coins daily, and he had to think of a way to start a business. Chengruei, do you have any plans after the new year? Father Jiyu asked. You mean in that aspect? It's the thing that the clan members mentioned about bringing everyone along to do. This can be big or small, but you must handle it well. Yes. Even if you refuse, you have to be tactful about doing it. Otherwise, you will offend the others. Second uncle Jiyu chimed in. Jiyu Chengji and Jiyu Changye, originally unconcerned about their conversation, immediately perked up their ears and listened. Ying and I have already thought about this. Oh, how do you guys plan to solve this? Father Jiyu asked curiously. At the same time, he was also looking forward to their idea, hoping it would be useful to him. Chapter 170 New Year, 6. You've heard of the plant, chili? It's the main ingredient for hot pot. Jiyu Chengruei asked. I know. It's the red and spicy one. Second uncle Jiyu nodded. Yes, we don't produce chili in this area, so it's 30% more expensive to import. So we were going to propose that they plant it, and we'd supply the seeds. There are also various kinds of vegetables we need. If anyone can grow them, the restaurant will buy from them. Jiyu Chengruei replied. Farming, huh? Second uncle Jiyu lost interest when he heard this. Chengruei, do you know about the production quantity of chili? Jiyu Chengji asked curiously. He couldn't leave for an outstation trip for a year or two because his wife was pregnant. He could try it out if the income from planting chili were good. I'm not sure about the details, but I heard it's more cost-effective than growing normal grains and vegetables, and they don't need particularly fertile land. Jiyu Chengruei replied vaguely. He only knew that chili in both the interspace and modern times was considered a high-yield crop, but he couldn't be sure since he had never planted it in these ancient times. I've seen them before, and the output should not be low. When it ripens, the plant will be so filled with red chilies that you can't even see its leaves. The main point is that it can be planted in mountains or sand, so I think it's relatively drought-resistant. That sounds good. Second uncle Jiyu said. Yup, if it's successful, it'll be much better than planting a single crop. Father Jiyu nodded. How many seeds do you have? Is it enough for everyone? He asked. Yes. We peeled half of the seeds from the chili we bought earlier to plant them ourselves. Jiyu Chengruei paused and continued, but I don't suggest destroying the grain crop you have planted. After all, they are something to fill your stomach with, and that's much more important. The problem is that we can't say for sure what the yield will be after planting it, so we recommend using the vegetable garden or some extra land to plant it as a trial. If it's successful, it'll give more seeds next year. You're right. Don't go making empty promises and decisions for others. Father Jiyu nodded in agreement. He felt gratified and sad at the same time. He was glad that he had matured and was more tactful in his words and actions. He was no longer as stubborn as he used to be. The unfortunate thing was that he was forced to mature, which caused him to lose his good relationship with them. After the meal, they sat down and chatted for a while. When Madame Chiao was tired, the young couple took their baskets and went home. Jiyu Chengji and his wife returned to their bedroom, and he told Mrs. Yang about planting chili. Darling, I think this is feasible. Let's buy 2 acres of barren land and try it. Barren land? But that means we have to plow it up, right? You do know we don't have any servants now, and I can't do any work. Besides, you're doing a good job in the workshop. How will you have the time for this? If this doesn't work and you lose the workshop job, what will we do in the future? Mrs. Yang said in disagreement. After hearing this, Jiyu Chengji hesitated momentarily and said, I don't want to do the job at the workshop anymore. It's tiring and only earns me a little. Now that the Chiao family is gone, I want to take a gamble. Otherwise, our lives will be stagnant like this forever. Mrs. Young fell silent upon hearing this. To be honest, she had had enough of this kind of life where she could neither eat her fill nor starve to death. However, the husband and wife had never suffered before, let alone farming. She hesitated for a moment. I think uncle and father will decide on this matter soon. Let's see what the family will do before we decide if we want to go on ourselves. Chapter 171 New Year, 7. Alright, let's see what happens then. Ji-yu Chungji nodded. Father Ji-yu and second uncle Ji-yu, who were on night duty in the main hall, also discussed this. However, their family only had 100 acres of land and all of it was planted with wheat, so there was no more land to grow chili. In the end, Father Ji-yu said, if we really can't do it, let's see if anyone has land to sell. If not, we can buy some barren land to plant vegetables, as we can't keep buying them with our current income. That's true. Since there's no tax for the next 5 years, we can try it. If this chili thing doesn't work out, we'll turn it into a vegetable garden. Second uncle Ji-yu nodded in agreement. At that time, Mrs. Yarrow couldn't bear to listen anymore. The men only thought about how they could earn money by farming, but why didn't they think about whether they knew how to farm or not? At the thought of this, she asked, Brother, darling, you're both thinking about farming. But which one of you knows how to farm? You've never even watered the flowers. Yeah, no matter how high the income from farming is, there's a limit. If we were to hire workers, we might as well not farm. Mrs. Liu echoed. Who would know how to do anything when they were born? You didn't know how to grow bean sprouts before, but you've learned it now. Second uncle Ji-yu said indignantly. Speaking of bean sprouts, fewer people are selling them now. We can try that out. Father Ji-yu added. That's because there are no more cheap beans. The green beans in the grain shop have grown to 7 coppers per pound now. Mrs. Liu mentioned. 1 pound of beans grows to about 10 pounds of bean sprouts. We won't lose money no matter what, as there will be no more vegetables for sale after the new year. This will be a good opportunity. Father Ji-yu insisted. Let's try it then. We can sell them for at least 1 or 2 months before the vegetables grow. Second uncle Ji-yu nodded in agreement. You're not buying a boat. Mrs. Yarrow saw that they were hard-bent on farming and hurriedly asked. You have the silver for that. Second uncle Ji-yu retorted in a bad mood. Father Ji-yu replied, let's forget about buying a boat for now. Let's see if we can rent one after the river opens. On the other end, Ji-yu Chungrui and Ju Ying returned home and gave Zhuang a pot of pork ribs to enjoy the new year. The two of them took a bath and changed into new clothes the next morning before going out to make their New Year's visits. The first place they went was their old home. Later, Ji-yu Chungrui and the other 4 brothers went for New Year's greetings. Ju Ying went to the patriarch's home with Mrs. Liu and Mrs. Yarrow. The group went out, and after a round of visits, she felt her knees trembling. She hadn't expected she would have to kowtow in New Year's greetings. If she had known, she would have changed into thick cotton pants. After they visited the entire village, the village women gathered together to gossip. Finally, 9th Aunt Ji-yu looked at Mrs. Liu and asked, Sister, your son Changye is turning 18 this year. What kind of girl are you looking for? Do you need our help to find one? Her standards are high, so it's impossible for her to take a liking to your niece. Don't bother asking. At this point, 6th Aunt Ji-yu spoke. What's wrong with my niece? Why can't she make the cut? 9th Aunt Ji-yu looked at her question. Does your niece know how to read? Ji-yu Changye used to be a scholar, so no matter how low his standards are, he would never find a girl who couldn't read. 6th Aunt Ji-yu responded by turning her head. 9th Aunt Ji-yu was angry after hearing this and wanted to hit her. Mrs. Wang saw this and immediately stepped forward and stopped her. It's the new year, let's not get angry and hurt each other's feelings. After saying that, she glared at 6th Aunt Ji-yu. You too. Why do you have such a foul mouth? His mother hasn't even said anything yet, and here you are answering for her. I stopped her because I was afraid she would embarrass herself. Sixth Aunt Jiyu mumbled, frustrated. You're still talking. Mrs. Wang glared at her. Well, it's getting late. Let's go home and cook for our families. Mrs. Liu said with a dry smile. Chapter 172 New Year, 8. Yes, yes. We'll talk another day when we're free. Mrs. Yarrow echoed and immediately followed Mrs. Liu. Ju Ying took this opportunity to leave but didn't go with them. Instead, she returned to her own home to prepare a hot pot. She didn't forget Jiyu Chungrui said that Jiyu Chengshi would come for a hot pot meal today. So she got busy after she got home. She prepared some other dishes and knew Jiyu Chengshi needed to eat more, so she cooked 2 bags of rice noodles. When it was almost noon, she prepared a pot of charcoal. However, there was no copper pot at their home, so she had to use a small iron pot instead. On the other hand, Jiyu Chungrui couldn't leave as easily as she did. His clan surrounded him, and he had to explain chili and vegetable planting to them. It wasn't until the smell of rice came from the patriarch's house that they took their leave. After he came out, Jiyu Chengshi immediately chased after him. Hi, third brother. Let's go. I didn't forget you. Jiyu Chungrui smiled and rubbed his head. He then looked at Jiyu Chengji and Jiyu Chengye and said, why don't you two come together? Jiyu Chengji and Jiyu Chengye looked at each other and shook their heads, and they could tell he was just being polite. Besides, Ju Ying wouldn't be able to sit at the table if they were all there, making them rude guests. All right, another day then. Jiyu Chungrui said as he brought Jiyu Chengshi home. He smelled a spicy fragrance wafting over him as soon as he entered the courtyard. Chengshi sniffed and exclaimed, it smells so good. No wonder the business of Grassland Taste Restaurant is so good. Come on, you glutton. Jiyu Chungrui brought him into the house after that. It just so happened that Ju Ying was almost done preparing. The 3 washed their hands and began to eat. Ju Ying looked at Jiyu Cheng, who liked spicy food so much that he kept eating faster even though he struggled with the spice. She smiled and handed him a cup of herbal tea. If it's too spicy, it'll be much better if you use the chopsticks to force the spicy soup out of the ingredients. Jiyu Chengshi nodded repeatedly. I know, third sister-in-law, but the mutton is just too delicious, not gamey yet tender. Also, the noodles are just splendid, chewy, and al dente. The couple saw that he was eating happily and didn't try to dissuade him anymore. Instead, they tried their best to feed him. After he was full, the couple started eating. Once lunch was over, Ju Ying was afraid that his throat couldn't withstand the spice, so she made him a pot of chrysanthemum tea with rock sugar. In the afternoon, the 2 brothers spent some time playing chess while Ju Ying wrapped and froze some dumplings. Jiyu Chengshi didn't eat there that night. When he left, Ju Ying gave him the remaining hot pot base and some dipping sauce for him to bring back. Fortunately, the people at the old mansion hadn't finished up their mutton, so everyone had a taste of the hot pot with vegetables and steamed buns. The next day was traditionally a day for the daughter to return to her mother's house. However, the woman who had married into the Jiyu family couldn't go back, and there wasn't anyone else coming over. Thus, the couple finally had a good night's sleep. They only got up when Zhuang was hungry and kept barking. After breakfast, they heard a burst of laughter from next door. The couple was startled, knowing Sister Tian didn't laugh like this. Could they have guests over? Just as they were filled with curiosity, they saw Sister Tian sending a person dressed as a matchmaker past their house. It seems that Brother Tian's time has come. Ju Ying paused for a moment and mentioned, indeed, it's about time. Brother Tian is a good and capable person. Now that he has a stable income, finding a suitable partner in the village wouldn't be difficult. Just watch. There will be lots of people coming to visit them over the next few days. Jiyu Chungrui replied with a smile. Chapter 173 GUZ. After lunch, the couple wanted to take Zhuang for a walk in the mountains. Just as they were about to leave, Mrs. Wang brought a haggard-looking but well-dressed young woman to their doors. Ju Ying was stunned but still greeted her. Hello, Auntie. Please come in. She invited them into the house. Jiyu Chungrui had no choice but to tie Zhuang back to his post and head to the kitchen to boil some water, which caused Zhuang to bark sadly. After they returned to the living room and sat down, Mrs. Wang introduced them to each other. Ju Ying only realized that the young woman was Mrs. Wang's eldest daughter, Jiyu Zi. She quickly pushed some dried fruits she had prepared to them and said, "Oh, big sister, it's you. When did you come back?" "Just this morning. We've come to find Chungrui and request that he do a checkup for her." When Madame Wang saw that Jiyu Chungrui wasn't around, she couldn't help but ask, "Does Chungrui have something to do?" "He's most likely in the kitchen boiling some water. Wait a moment while he'll take his place." After Ju Ying finished speaking, she got up and walked out. When she reached the kitchen, she saw that Jiyu Chungrui had filled a pot with water and was about to light the fire. She quickly went forward to stop him. "That young woman is your eldest uncle's daughter, Jiyu Zi. She's here as a patient today, so you'd better go and take a look while I make tea. I'll go over then." Before entering the living room, Jiyu Chungrui took a ladle of warm water from the stovepot and placed it in a basin. After he left, Ju Ying entered her interspace and made a pot of boiling water with her electric kettle. She used this boiled water to make a pot of Longjing tea and returned to the living room. After pouring a cup of tea for everyone, Ju Ying sat next to Mrs. Wang and waited with her for the results. After a few minutes, Jiyu Chungrui stopped and looked at Jiyu Zi thoughtfully. "Big sister, when did you feel you were not feeling well?" "About 3 months ago, but I can't remember the exact time. My problem was confirmed 2 months ago, as I've visited a few doctors. They all said it was anemia, and no serious illness was diagnosed." Jiyu Zi frowned and replied. She continued, "Have you found out the reason for my sickness?" Jiyu Chungrui replied, "If I'm not wrong, you've been poisoned by a slow-acting poison. However, I'm not knowledgeable enough to confirm what kind of poison it is." "What? Poisoned?" Mrs. Wang stood up in shock and looked at Jiyu Zi, asking, "Is anyone bullying you? Who wants to harm you? Tell me, and Mother will tear them apart. Mother, let's go back." Jiyu Zi was stunned before smiling bitterly. She went forward to help her mother up to leave. Jiyu Chungrui looked at her forbearing expression and knew she had something on her mind. She probably knew what was going on. But it was obvious that she didn't want to be treated, so he persuaded her, "Big sister, if you don't get treatment in time, I'm afraid you won't live for more than 3 months. You have to think about your children, too." "What? 3 months?" Mrs. Wang's legs went limp, and she looked at Jiyu Chungrui in shock. She staggered, pounced on him to grab his arm, and begged, "Chungrui, can you cure her?" Jiyu Chungrui quickly helped her to sit down, but before he could speak, Jiyu Zi stated, "Mother, there's no need for that and let's go back. Don't make things difficult for Chungrui. You stupid girl, do you know something? Tell me, and Mother will make the decision for you." Mrs. Wang looked at her unworried appearance and demanded angrily, "No, Mother, Jiyu Zi hesitated. Seeing this, Jiyu Chungrui was certain that this wouldn't be a simple matter. He could only say, "Big sister, would you be willing to leave a few drops of your blood here? I'll try to test to see if I can find out what kind of poison it is." Chapter 174. Waiting for the results. Of course, we will give you the blood. Your elder sister just turned 25, and she's in the prime of her life. She can't just die like this. Mrs. Wang firmly nodded. After that, she dragged her daughter to Jiyu Chungrui. Seeing this, Jiyu Zi did not dispute further. Jiyu Chungrui immediately turned around and went to the west room. He took out a small porcelain bottle and a small blade to take 3 drops of blood from her finger. "I'll try to find out what poison it is as soon as possible." "All right, thank you. I'll leave now and wait for your news. Let us know as soon as you have any results." Mrs. Wang turned to leave. "Mother, let's go." Jiyu Zi turned around and walked out with Mrs. Wang after saying their goodbyes. Ju Ying saw they had something on their minds and didn't ask them to stay. Instead, she sent them out and placed Jiyu Chungrui in her interspace after returning to the house. She then brought Zhuang up the mountain. Although the mountain was pretty barren and desolate, it shone a lovely golden color under the sun. Sparrows chirping could be heard from time to time, painting a picture full of vitality. When she and her dog arrived at the Mother God Temple halfway up the mountain, Ju Ying immediately remembered her previous nightmares. She walked in and looked at the shabby Mother God Temple. She wet the ground with water and took a broom to cleaning up the cobwebs near the Mother God statue too. However, she didn't dare to touch the Mother God statue, as she was afraid she would break it into pieces if she did. Finally, she kept her cleaning tools in her interspace and bowed deeply 3 times before leaving the Mother God Temple. She took Zhuang for another walk around the area, and finally, the two reached a river. Through the thin layer of ice, she could see that there were still plenty of large fish in the river. She suddenly got playful and made Zhuang step back. She then lifted a large rock and threw it into the river. Sure enough, the ice layer broke. The fish inside immediately leaped through the hole, and Ju Ying was shocked to find that some of the big fish looked heavier than 5 pounds. However, after a few big fish lashed their tails around, the ice around them broke. The fish fell back into the river and swam away. But more and more fish were jumping out of the hole, big and small. Woof woof. Zhuang suddenly rushed out, which startled Ju Ying. She quickly shouted, Zhuang, come back. However, Zhuang had already rushed in. Perhaps it was due to its light body and quick speed, but it didn't break the fine ice layer and brought back a large fish weighing about 3 pounds. When Zhuang returned, it brought the fish to her feet and barked twice, wagging its tail and demanding praise. Ju Ying patted its head. You're not allowed to go in again. Otherwise, you won't be having dinner tonight. She had all kinds of fish in her interspace, so she didn't want Zhuang to lose his life because of some fish. I never knew that you had such a mischievous side. Qian Zhuang's voice sounded as he came down from the mountain, followed by Jiyu Erjiang, carrying a hatchet. It's the new year, and you two are going up the mountain to chop firewood. Ju Ying looked at the hatchet in their hands and asked. Yeah, there hasn't been enough firewood since the new year. So, I've been staying at Brother Qian's house. Otherwise, I'd freeze to death. Jiyu Erjiang laughed dryly. You just had to be lazy, didn't you? You would have been frozen to death, so let's see if you'll still be this lazy next time. Also, take the fish. Ju Ying continued. Take this for another dish for tonight's dinner. After that, she led Zhuang down the mountain. Otherwise, ugly rumors might spread if someone else saw them together on the mountain. On the other hand, Qian Zhuang and Jiyu Hanjiang had their eyes on the fish. As soon as Ju Ying returned to the village, she saw Tianyu and the other children playing a game of catch. Their happy voices lingered around the village for a long time. Thinking about her own childhood, she couldn't help but feel envious. At the same time, she silently promised to give her future child a happy childhood. Chapter 175 Disapproved. When she thought of her future child, she also remembered the child's father, Jiyu Chungrui. She realized he was still in her interspace and wondered how the test was going. She rushed home, tied Zhuang up, and entered her interspace after locking up. She saw Jiyu Chungrui coming down from the laboratory on the 2nd floor and quickly asked, How is it? Did you find out what poison it is? No, I can only confirm that the effect of this poison is similar to that of opium. They both ruin the body and corrode nerves. I must go to Dr. Luo to see if he knows what it is. Also, don't wait for me tonight. I'll just stay over in the clinic or our restaurant. That's fine. You should go early, then. Ju Ying said as she took him out of her interspace. Jiyu Chungrui left with his first aid kit, while Ju Ying returned to her interspace and started making clothes for the next spring and summer. After all, she wouldn't have the time when they opened for business soon. On the other hand, Chun Hong had just returned from Jiyu Zishan's place, who was Jiyu Chengyes' biological sister. When she heard that her mother, Widow Hua, was looking for a matchmaker to match her and Tian Jiawang, she immediately rushed in. Mother, if you want to marry him, you can do it yourself. I don't want to marry a man whose wife died. How can you say that? This isn't what I taught you. Widow Hua angrily scolded her. She glared at her, signaling for her to restrain herself. However, Chunhong didn't want to marry Tian Jiawang, so she continued, "It's true, and it's not like I can't get married. Why should I marry someone whose wife died? What if he's a jinx? Aren't you afraid that he'll die?" You. As Widow Hua was about to say something, the matchmaker immediately smiled and said, I think we should just forget about this. Mr. Tian has no shortage of attractive women pursuing him. After saying that, she glanced at Chunhong with a sneer and hurriedly left. "Hey, sister, don't go." Seeing this, Widow Hua knew this was bad and immediately wanted to chase after her. Chunhong immediately stopped her. "Mother, why are you chasing after her? I already said I don't want to marry Tian Jiawang." "You shut up. Do you know why I haven't remarried in many years and have worked hard to maintain a good reputation? I want to leave a nice impression on us and find you a good family to marry into. But look at you. Do you know that your reputation has been ruined just because of those words you said? If she were to spread those around, how would you find a husband in the future?" At this point, Widow Hua's face grew stern. "You're not allowed to go near the Jiyu family anymore. Based on Mrs. Liu's difficult personality, I won't let you marry into their family. I'm marrying brother Changye, not Mrs. Liu. Don't you know what happened to Ju Ying? That's because she isn't Mrs. Liu's real daughter-in-law. Besides, I'm not like Ju Ying, that pushy, meek girl. If she doesn't like you, it'll be easier for her to bully you as your real mother-in-law. Besides, Jiyu Changye doesn't have anything. He's judged guilty by the emperor's court, so what's good about that?" At this point, Widow Hua paused for a moment before she patiently advised, "Tian Jiawang is different. He now has a stable job and no in-laws or children. You can hold the reins of the family once you marry him. It'll help you in the future, and you'll have a good life." Chunhong glared at her after hearing her belittle Jiyu Changye and asked, "Did the widow of the Tian family ask about me? I knew nothing good would come out of her visits, and you better lessen your contact with her in the future." Widow Hua saw that her daughter still hadn't listened to a single word she said and got anxious. She directly ordered, "You're rebelling against me? No matter what, I won't allow you to marry Jiyu Changye." You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.